So apparently, if you're a church musician who wants to do anything else with your musical talents outside of church, you're a bad person. If you look at music as a profession, you're in it for the wrong reasons. This is the kind of craziness that the super religious among us will tell you about being a church musician. But in this video, I'm going to discuss this issue of religion versus artistry and share a really harsh message to those who have this obnoxious opinion about church musicians. So it's really hard being a church musician who wants to learn and grow in the entire art of music, because you have the overly smug, pretentious, churchy people who think that they can tell you and dictate to you what you should be doing with your musical skills and talents. They'll tell you that you shouldn't want to get paid for playing at a church, but they'll also tell you that you shouldn't want to go out to secular places like clubs and such to make money from your skills as well. They want to tell you that you have to choose one of these over the other. And if you're trying to do both, you are, let's see, what's all of the churchy cliches? You're double-minded, trying to serve two masters, or you need to either be warm or cold. You can't be lukewarm and all of that stuff. You want to play and perform some jazz or some blues or even some classical. You're a sinner. And yet, almost all of modern church music has borrowed really heavily from these styles of music. So doesn't that mean that most church musicians are playing secular music anyway? So the musician does things like go to school and take lessons and spends hours and weeks and months and even decades learning and growing and perfecting their craft. They grow themselves in areas of like leadership and professionalism and discipline. And they go out and get experience with playing and performing. And in all of this, they realize that they have this really deep love for music, and they want to be a musician and they want to be an artist. And then they decide that the best use of all of this knowledge and skill that they've acquired would be best put to use in a church, all of which you would think are highly valuable assets to a church, being that music is such an integral part of church. But sadly, none of this is enough, because you still have the super I'm so spiritual people wanting to project their feelings and opinions on you about what you should be doing with your talent. And if you even come close to bringing up the subject of money and wanting to be paid for it, you get labeled as, bad and wrong, and, you get told that your heart is not right or in the right place and all of that. My go-to question for those people, which has never really been sufficiently answered to this day, is, would you, the person who is claiming that musicians shouldn't be paid and all of that, and their hearts are in the wrong place and all of that, would you be willing to, today, quit your job that you've been working for a number of years, that you've gained skills and knowledge in, that you've gone to school for, and that you use the funds for to support yourself and your family? Would you be able to quit that job today and go do that exact same talent and skill for a church for free? Go ahead, I'll wait. Now, let me tell you this really crazy story that illustrates how deep this silliness can go. But right before we get into that, if you're getting value out of this video so far, or if you get value out of any of my videos here on this channel, do me a quick favor and hit the like button on this video. That helps out with the YouTube algorithms and it helps this video to spread, and I really would appreciate it. So I remember this situation some years ago where this pastor reached out to me to play for this revival service he was having. The revival was going to be 5 days long, and he wanted me to handle the entire service, meaning play all of the congregational stuff, for the choirs and the soloists and all of that. So we talked about it a little more, and he gave me the details of what was going to be happening and all of that. And eventually it got around to me asking him how much was he going to pay, for me to come and do this, play this service for him. So he went into this very typical response that so many of us church musicians have heard time and time again of, well, we don't have a lot of money, and, God is going to bless you, and, we was hoping that you could show up and do this for us for free. So I was like, okay, you want me to drive 35 minutes there, 35 minutes back, 5 days in a row, play for this 2.5 to 3 hour service that you're talking about having and all of that, and you don't have any sort of monetary offering that you're going to pay for that? Now, I didn't say those words to him. It's just what I kind of thought in my head. But I just responded to him very politely and said, well, no, sir, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. Now, I don't think he was expecting me to say that because he just kind of paused for a minute and then eventually said, okay, thanks, bye, and then hung up the phone. Now, as fate would have it, I'm playing at this church service just a few months later, and then after the service, I'm standing around talking to some of the people that I know and all of that. And I see this guy walking up to me out of my peripheral vision. It's like a really tall guy walking up. I thought he was just coming up to speak like everyone else was. So he walks up and walks through the circle of people that's kind of around me, very rudely, by the way, and then just walks up to me and says, hey, are you Terrence? And I responded, yes, sir, I am. And you are? He was just like, I'm Pastor such and such, and I spoke to you a few months ago about playing for this revival service I was having. And I was just like, oh, okay, it's nice to meet you in person. And his response to me was, man, I'm disappointed in you. That's the problem with a lot of church musicians these days. They want to get paid for everything. Man, when I tell you, it took every single bit of decency in me to just hold my tongue. Now, before I tell you what I actually said to him in response, you see the audacity here? Here's someone that I don't know, have never met, doesn't know me, has never met me, and knows nothing about me, coming up to me to say that he's disappointed in me because I wanted to be paid for my talent and time for what he was asking me to do. Now, a really big part of me wanted to jump stupid on this dude, but I held it in and just responded to him, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but let me ask you a question. When we were talking about all of the details, you mentioned this big name pastor that you were bringing in to do the revival service. Did you pay him? And he was just like, well, why does that matter? And I just said, you know what? Never mind. That kind of answers my question. Have a good day. And I walked away. Now, to be fair, I wouldn't say that this situation is representative of, all church pastors and even the majority of them, so to speak. But it does represent a mindset that many, many, many church people have about church musicians. But all of this really brings into focus this question of, can church musicians even have a life? Or more specifically, can church musicians be artists and express themselves and their musical creativity outside of church? So I'm going to answer this and probably say something that's going to get all of the religious nuts draws in a bunch. Musicians, if you want to be an artist of any sort outside of church, don't let these hypocritical, super spiritual people who claim they have all of the answers and, they know how to tell you what to do, but don't do the same things themselves. Don't let them sway you from doing it. Now, I'm not telling you to break any rules. I'm not telling you to go against anyone necessarily. And I'm not telling you to go out and succumb to all of the negative stereotypes that people have about musicians and all of that. And obviously, there are a lot of things to consider when you're talking about doing something like this. But if you're somebody who likes to play and perform jazz music and R&B music and music that's outside of church music, don't let anybody convince you that you're a bad person or that you are bad somehow for wanting to do that. And definitely do not let anyone convince you that wanting to be paid for your time, skills, and talent that you've spent years acquiring is somehow bad or that makes you a bad person. Just make sure that whatever situation you find yourselves in, be it in church or outside of church, that you maintain good character, you maintain professionalism, you treat people with respect and kindness, and most of all, you have a disposition of wanting to give more than you want to receive. Because despite what many of these type of people would have you believe, being a musician is a real job. And it takes a lot more education and talent and skill and knowledge and all of that than a lot of the jobs that these same people do on their day jobs from day to day. And nobody, and I mean nobody, should be making you feel bad and telling you that the only thing that you as a spiritual person or a church person can do is use your talent and skill in church and do that for free. Imagine showing up at, say, a nursing home and playing and performing for the people there and helping them to ease their mind and comfort their ailments and all of this by just giving them some smooth jazz or some classical or some R&B music and stuff that they like. Imagine that in this world of unease and tension and anxiety, You can do something like sit down in your house at your computer and go live on your social media and perform, the type of music that a lot of your followers and friends like to hear, and help provide them some comfort to ease their mind and just help them have a better day. It would seem to me that this is the type of stuff that would be considered God's work. But unfortunately, the limited mind of the churchy clan people out there can't see and won't understand this. And some preachers and pastors and such want to keep you a slave to this mindset and mentality so bad that they do things like publicly humiliate musicians in the middle of church services, which I talk about in this video right here, so you definitely want to head over and check it out right now.